Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I am Mike Coletta.
And this week, Mike is going to take us a little bit through the origin of fighting games part 2. So if you missed our part 1, go back a couple of weeks before the Cheat Devices episode, and you'll get caught up on fighting games part 1. Although I think this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting because we start to see fighting games that more closely resemble what we would call a fighting game today, right?
Yeah, that's true. You definitely do. So essentially, we're just going to jump in from where we left off on episode 155. We are still very much in the era of Bruce Lee fighting games. It's called the Bruce Lee era, actually. And if you want to know more about that, I highly recommend, for context, you watch the video that Polygon put out on YouTube called Bruce Lee is Fighting Games. And I will link to that on the Discord tomorrow when this episode goes out. But it gave me so much context. It's also really funny to see how much Bruce Lee influenced fighting games. He's everywhere, just like knockoff versions of Bruce Lee in all these games. It's pretty nuts. But
yeah, and the design of the fights like sort of mimic fighting movies, at least earlier ones, right?
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about the first game here is entirely pretty much based on a Bruce Lee movie. So
Sweet.
Like not even apologetically so. It's like, yeah, this is the Bruce Lee movie. It's just the game, essentially, an unlicensed game version of it. I used Hardcore Gaming 101, their list of pre-Street Fighter 2 fighting games. It's the same one I went off of in the first one. So I did kind of make some editorial choices based off of reading all of them, which ones I wanted to include in the episode. So if your favorite game is not mentioned, I apologize. You can email me and tell me why I'm wrong, and that's totally okay. But there was just so many games, and there's a lot. It's rapid fire, so let's just get started. So in 1984, we have the game Kung Fu Master, which is also known as Spartan X in Japan. This came out on the arcade side only, but we are starting with it today because it is a very important game, because it was a game produced by Takashi Nishiyama, who would later go on to create Street Fighter, which is pretty much the end of this era. So that's why this is super important. This game is a beat 'em up though, but it was so influential to martial arts fighting games genres in general that we need to include it on this list, because it's also pretty much based entirely on Hong Kong martial arts films of the 70s. So you play as Thomas, who is a kung fu master, as you fight your way through 5 levels of the Devil's Temple to rescue your girlfriend, Sylvia, and defeat the crime boss, Mixter X. And as you go up the 5 levels, at the end of all 5 levels is a boss battle, which, if you are a fan of kung fu movies, you would know this is the exact same plot as the 1972 Bruce Lee film Game of Death. Like, Bruce Lee goes into a temple, fights his way up the temple, beating a boss on every level. It's the exact same thing. But this game is really cool. Like, it's essentially an unlicensed movie that you're playing out. And I think because they got the plot from Game of Death, they could spend more time focusing on the gameplay, which is why the gameplay is actually pretty big. For a small, like, 5-level game, it's got a lot of stuff in it. For a little small game, it's got a lot of detail. And I think this game is very important, especially because, I mean, Takashi Nishiyama would make Street Fighter, and that's the game that started it all, essentially. So that's the first game. The second one is actually a series of games called the Yi Ar Kung Fu series. This was developed by Konami. The first game came out in 1985, but it was ported to a lot of systems. So the first game was an arcade game, but then it came up on the MSX, the Famicom or the NES, ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, the Amstrad CPC, the BBC Micro, and the Acorn Electron systems.
Gosh, lots of those like British computers.
Oh yeah,
personal computers that we missed out on in the United States.
We really did. It's kind of, I mean, did we cover we kind of covered these British computers, right? We talked about the ZX Spectrum.
They were really
before.
big in, ZX Spectrum, Amstrad, CPC, I think, BBC Micro, and I'm sure some of these other ones that were all like, gosh, while the video game crash was happening, it was all about these PCs in Europe and the UK.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that they brought all these systems. And I think we talked about some games last week that were like the first fighting game on the ZX Spectrum and so on and so forth. So also ZX Spectrum, just a really cool name for a computer, I think.
Way better than saying ZX Spectrum.
I used to call it ZX Spectrum, and I was wrong, and I apologize for it. So, okay, Yar Kung Fu, though, features a colorful cast of characters, and it does, like, it's essentially also a 1970s Hong Kong martial arts movie, but each character has individual abilities. But the important thing is you just play as the character Oolong, and Oolong is just Bruce Lee. They're not even trying. If you watch it, it's Bruce Lee. This is Bruce Lee. Like, it's not even caring. The plot is Oolong is out for revenge after your father has been killed by the tournament champion in the final battle. That's right, it's a tournament again, because here we go. Like, this one is pretty much more based on Enter the Dragon than Game of Death. And I watched Enter the Dragon this week for this podcast.
Oh, doing some research, some movie watching research.
And I was like, that movie is really good. It holds up pretty well.
I've never seen it.
It's on Netflix. Highly recommend. I was I actually looked it up. It's streaming on like multiple things. I think it's on Netflix and Amazon Prime and another one too. So really, really great. Really good stuff. But the cool thing about this series is the player can perform up to 16 different moves. And it also has a health bar system, which games in the past have had a health bar system, but I think it's important to mention those that still do it, because that is going to be what we have in fighting games as we know them, as a health bar or a stamina bar, it's called. Regardless, you hit a guy, the bar goes down. That's
when the bar runs
game.
out, they're gone.
Exactly. So that's why that one's important. The Way of the Exploding Fist is the next game. Also a really cool name for a video game. I think a little wordy.
That's pretty good, yeah.
But it's really cool. This is developed by Beam Software in 1985. It was released on the Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC, Commodore Plus 4, which I don't know what the Commodore Plus is.
I'm not sure what that is either.
The BBC Micro and the ZX Spectrum. This game is important because it brought essentially the game Karate Champ that we talked about last episode on fighting games to the West. And so it brought that over to America. Also, many fighting games after this one are pretty much just plagiarized versions of The Way of Exploding Fists, like not even trying. The game had really high-res visuals at the time, and I actually gave this game a Google and looked at the screenshots of it, and it looks really cool. It's definitely worth it. You guys should check it out. The fighters had a dozen moves they could perform, including block and evade, which is pretty new. But the only problem with the game that I read from the hardcore gaming site is the hitbox detection is pretty dicey, and it's not very great. The controls for this game were the major complaint, though, that I read about, because players always faced each other. Like, they were always set to face each other. So when you moved past someone, like when you crossed paths, it got kind of wonky and had some awkward moments because they were like always supposed to look at each other. You know, it would kind of freak out a bit.
Oh, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. This next game is called Typhoon Gal. It's from Taito. It was released in 1985. It's an arcade game. It is notable because this is the first fighting game with a female protagonist.
All right.
Yeah, it is also the first fighter with throws and grappling, which I think is pretty cool. So this game has a lot of firsts.
Kind of a precursor to some Smash Bros. Stuff, a little bit there.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, Typhoon Gal is the first game with a female protagonist, first game with throws and grappling, and the stages are also like indoor-outdoor. They put a little more work into the stages, I thought, for this one when I was looking at screenshots of it. It's a pretty cool game, worth a mention. I will say that while it did have like the first game with a female protagonist, it's classic weird video games though, where she would like change behind a curtain and you see like clothes go everywhere, and if she loses a game she cries. Like, it's not yeah, it's like we did have a strong female protagonist, but you didn't really play it well.
It was a step forward, but it was not perfect.
Exactly. Yes, that's a great way to put it. The next game is very different than the previous games. It's not martial arts. This game is called Galactic Warriors, or it's known as Ginja Jushi in Japan. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It is developed by Konami. It came out in 1985. It's an arcade game, and this is the first game to have distinct characters with also distinct movesets. So you play as one of three different robots. Samson, who is a mid-sized robot with a sword. I think it's Gaia, a female robot with breast projectiles. So
okay,
it's the 80s. And Poseidon, a bulky robot with extendable limbs. And the game has like modern elements of fighting games. It's got block damage, air blocking, projectile attacks. It has a health bar. Like with an analog health bar, it doesn't have like notches on it. It's just a smooth health bar. And it has the ability to do multiple attacks in the air. So you know how in like modern fighting games, you jump in the air, you start performing attacks, you kind of slow down and you can keep fighting in the air. You know, this one has that. This is one of the first games to do that. So, I mean, minus the breast projectiles, I think everything's cool with this game.
Nice.
Yeah. But again, we're in the 80s. So, They're trying, but they're not perfect, as you said before. This next game is called Fist 2, The Legend Continues. It was developed by Beam Software. It came out in 1986, and it was on the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum. And this game I thought was cool because it had an adventure mode as well as a one-on-one fighting mode.
Did we talk about Fist 1?
I think Fist 1 is actually The Way of the Exploding Fist.
Oh,
because
gotcha.
they're both Beam Software, but they just decided to drop The Way of the Exploding and just do Fist 2, The Legend Continues.
Okay. The Legend Continues.
Yeah, so not super revolutionary by any means, but it is the sequel to The Way of the Exploding Fist, and that game is so big that it needs to be included. And it's cool they added an adventure mode, which is neat. So it's not just one-on-one fighting.
Yeah.
So this next one's also a game series. It's called Hiryu no Ken. It is developed by Culture Brain. And the dates on it are 1985 to 2000 because it had a lot of ports. So it came out on the arcade, but it also came out on the NES, the Game Boy, the SNES, the Game Boy Color, the PlayStation, and the N64.
Dang.
Yeah.
Is it all the same version, or like the N64 one the same as the arcade one? Or?
They're like little tweaks, but they're not enough to really warrant us going into every single game individually. And I feel like, hey, we can cover this now. But we're including this as a whole series because there are just too many games to count. And what's important is this is a series of games with two firsts. The first fighting game to have a tutorial, and the first game to have a combo system. Like built in place.
Okay, combo system's big though, because that's going to go on to influence these games forever.
Yes,
right?
It really will. So that's why this game is very important. The next game is called The Way of the Tiger. It was developed by Gremlin Graphics, which is a really cool name for a studio. In 1986, it came out on the ZX Spectrum, the Commodore 64, the Amstrad CPC, the Commodore Plus, and the MSX. Gremlin Graphics made a lot of mixed reaction fighting games, but The Way of the Tiger is unique because this game features multiple disciplines in fighting. There's hand-to-hand combat, pole fighting, and sword fighting. And you can actually practice these before you go through the stages where you fight progressively harder enemies. So there's a practice mode. But what's really kooky about this game that I wanted to include it on the list for this is you fight the most delightfully random assortment of enemies. Like, you'll go from fighting ninjas to fighting skeletons, and then you'll fight gnomes. I'm just like, perfect, perfect weird 80s video game.
Just throw it all in there. Just whatever is, what we're fighting against these days, just throw it in there.
Yeah, they were like, genres, we don't need those. We can just mix them all together. It's fine. And I thought that was a neat thing, and I wanted to include it on here. This next game is called Brian Jack's Uchimata. It was developed by Martech in 1986. It came out on the Commodore 64, Amstrad CPC, ZX Spectrum, and MSX. And this game is notable because it is the first game to have Street Fighter-style controller motions, which makes a lot of sense because this is a judo game. So your whole thing is grabbing and throwing, which I think is pretty neat. Yeah, so the first two combatants, you grab each other at the start, and then the game gives you a grip rating based on the distance from the opponent and the timing of your button press to grab that person. Then you both try to throw the opponent by pressing the fire button again and quickly putting in the joystick or like keyboard movements to based on if you're playing. So it's like kind of like a chess match of who can do like type the button the fastest and who can like move the joystick. It's really a cool idea. And the moves range from like simple like Hadouken like movements, to much more complex combinations of buttons to making a crazy combo happen. And they have to be put in with like really good speed and precision to make this work. Because you're essentially like having a combo off with someone, like a button typing off with another person or the CPU.
Like Typing of the Dead, but for fighting games?
Yeah, and the CPU is almost like impossible to beat, apparently. It's like way easier. It's much easier to get it to perform like one of too many like illegal moves and to have the opponent get disqualified. Like it's just it's really hard. It is mentioned on Hardcore Gamer 101 that this might be one of the first fighting games with like a learning curve because there's a lot to learn and the game is punishingly difficult if you're not practicing, which is a big thing about modern fighting games, especially in the esports scene. You have to know the moves and practice. And so this is one of the first games to include that. And I thought that's why it's important. Also, the idea of like an initial grapple and then it's like how quickly you can press the buttons to beat the computer. I mentioned earlier it sounded like I'm not sure this game is 2-player. I don't think it is. I think you're just fighting the CPU. So just keep that in mind. The next one is Champion Kendo. This was developed by Sega in 1986. It came out on the SG-1000, and this is the first game entirely dedicated to Kendo. So that sword fighting is one button for blocking and one for attacking, and the directions on the D-pad are for like the typical strikes in Kendo. So the strike zone, like the head, the wrist, or the body, and alongside a lunging strike as well. So there's no way to control feet movement. You're just like pacing back and forth automatically. Your character paces back and forth, and all you control are what zone you attack.
Gotcha.
I think it's very interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, it's different. It's very different. Again, I think it's kind of cool because we're in an age where these fighting games are so different, and you can see the industry's trying it out to see what works and what doesn't work. And I think if you were a fighting game fan in the late 80s, it was probably a very exciting time because you had so many games that were so incredibly different.
Yeah, I'd say that it's kind of similar to the time like a few years ago when Battle Royale games were still sort of being figured out, you know, where it's like, oh, we think there's something here, but everybody's doing something wildly kind of different. And now they've sort of more or less settled on a formula for them. But for a little while there were some like different games doing different things. Not all of them were good, but they were doing different things at least, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. I didn't even thought about the fact that we lived through the Battle Royale thing, which also makes me feel very old. So that's great.
We lived through Battle Royale. We lived through the MOBA time where every game wanted to be a MOBA, remember?
And see, and I never really got into MOBAs, which is funny because I got into MOBAs very late.
Yeah, we can talk about that someday, but there was a whole time period where every game was a MOBA, and now it's, well, a few years ago I would say it's less so now, but it's like now it's every game is a Battle Royale. I think it's easier to pull off Battle Royale than a MOBA.
I also think as a society, a lot of people have decided that the first-person shooter is almost an entry into video games in a way, you know, for a lot of people. And that I think we can thank Call of Duty for that and Halo. So that's what people are used to because, man, I really want to talk about MOBAs now. That's because I know that like started as a mod, right? So it's pretty interesting to go through. We should. Yeah. I'm putting that on my list. Okay. If it's not already on there, who knows? Okay. So this is the book. Is it a book holder? Is that what you call it? A placeholder?
Bookend?
A bookend? A placeholder? This is the placeholder function.
Placeholder.
Yeah. This is a placeholder. We're going to call them book holders from now on, just to be different. Okay. This is the placeholder part. This is where Street Fighter goes. This came out from Capcom on August 30th, 1987 for the arcade, the TurboGrafx CD, IBM PC, Atari ST, Amiga, Commodore 64, ZX Spectrum, Amstrad PC, PlayStation 2, Xbox, PSP, and so on and so forth. This is where it all began for Street Fighter 1. And I don't want to talk about Street Fighter 1 this episode because when I talk about Street Fighter 2, it should be included in that. And both games should get their very own special episode. So I am just making it known August 30th, 1987, first Street Fighter came out. And we're going to talk about it.
I fired up this recording. I was like, I can't wait to talk about Street Fighter today. Nope.
And and I'm shutting it down. I'm so sorry.
Everyone that wanted it to the next episode. That's how you keep people listening. Good thinking, Mike.
Thank you. You know, if there's one thing I know, it's podcast marketing, I guess. I don't know. Bookending, book placement.
It's podcast book placing.
That's right. Everyone knows how good we are at that. But yeah, I just feel like Street Fighter deserves its own episode. And if I'm going to do one on Street Fighter 2, I might as well include Street Fighter 1.
Yeah, I think so. I think they go together.
The important thing to note is that there are some very distinct differences between Street Fighter 1 and 2, and they need to be talked about in the same episode versus me saying them now, me forgetting, and then I don't mention them during the Street Fighter 2 episode. So we're going to put those together then. The next game, though, is a banger, as the kids say, that everyone knows. Double Dragon.
Oh!
This was developed by Technos Japan. It came out in 1988 on the arcade and the NES. And Double Dragon is a reference to the co-op aspect of the game. Surprise, surprise, Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon and double because there's two of them. So it's Double Dragon. So while we're talking about fighting games, this is actually a beat 'em up. And this game is pretty much what put beat 'em ups on the map. So we're not going to talk about it too much, but I want to acknowledge it because it is technically a fighting game. But we'll do this more when we do a beat 'em up episode. So and two placeholders.
That'll be exciting. We should do a beat 'em up episode. That'll be fun.
We really should, because we could talk about that. We could talk about Turtles in Time. Oh, Turtles. The Ninja Turtles might get their own.
The Simpsons arcade game? That's a beat 'em up.
That is a beat 'em up. Oh man, for NES, that was also very hard. I think too. I played it on there's the arcade version and an NES version, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, let's keep going. All right. The Last Apostle Puppet Show, or Reikai Doshi Chinese Exorcist. This game is weird, and I love it. It was developed by Home Data in 1988 for the arcade. Fighters are based on traditional Chinese puppets. This is the first fighting game to use digitized sprites. Everything else about this game is generic, but the looks of this game are pretty crazy for the time, and I don't really know how to describe it, so I'm just going to say you should Google it. It's worth a Google.
I'm Googling it right now. Oh, wow.
Worth the Google. Yeah, it looks strange. It's like that Mortal Kombat-esque, this is real life, but they're like moving animated real life photo, whatever that's called, you know?
Oh, yeah, the Mortal Kombat, where it's kind of like Donkey Kong Country, where they sort of digitized real life. Well, Donkey Kong was digitized 3D models, but I think you're right. Mortal Kombat was like digitized sort of real life photos, and it definitely has a kind of weird. It's definitely would be considered an art style today that I think they were trying to go for realistic back in the day, but it would just be considered an art style today. It looks cool though.
It looks very cool. It's very neat. All right. Okie dokie. The next game is called Hisatsu Dojo Yaburi. This is from Sigma Enterprises. It came out in 1989 for the Famicom. This game is really cool because it's an RPG fighter hybrid. Ooh. So between fights, you can go visit shops, talk to NPCs, explore the world. The world fights trigger like fighting game style battles, you know, like where you're like like you beat up to the guy and the screen flashes and then it goes into one-on-one fight.
Like Pokemon when you come across a trainer fight.
Yeah, there's also buildings in towns, and that's just tournaments are the buildings in the towns. The gameplay is pretty repetitive from what I get, but I think this is like a fighting game style Pokemon thing, so I had to include it on the list, essentially. All right, the next game on the list is called Violence Fight.
The best kind of fight.
Yeah, you know what I don't want? The non-violence fight. This is from Taito. Came out
it's
in
just two people
1989.
giving each other the silent treatment.
Yeah, we're violent, non-violence fighting. It's a lot of sarcasm. Sweet sarcasm combo. This came out on the arcade first, and then there's also PlayStation 2 or Xbox. I don't know if it was like a port or if it was a remake, but essentially, we talked about how Bruce Lee had a lot of, I guess, influence, you could say. Mostly it's just his likeness and everything also on fighting games. But this is actually where Jean-Claude Van Damme had a little bit of inspiration onto this. So this game is quite humorous. It's got some good graphics. It seems okay. But the scrolling storyline is this. And I just kind of wanted to read this. So here we go. In 1950s America, a game called Violence Fight was in vogue among mafia, reckless drivers, and general businessmen. This game was to struggle for the title of Greatest Quarreler in America. And of course, they got money as well. That's the real storyline from the game. So as you can see, the localization is bad, but I think it makes this game charming. So I wanted to include it. Violence Fight. Yeah, this might be up there with John Glames as a great name for a game, for sure. So this next one's called Tenkaichi Bushi Kiru Naguru. It was from Namco in 1989. It came out on the Famicom. And the reason it's on this list, this is Namco's first fighting game. And that is the only reason it's on this list. Not a lot of stuff about it special. It holds up and it's playable, which is something that's great to say because a lot of games on this list are not playable. So in that case, it's good. But Namco got into the fighting game genre in 1989, which is good. And this next one's kind of the same sort of deal. This one's called Street Smart. It's from SNK in 1989. It came out on the arcade, the Genesis, and the PSP. And this is SNK's first foray into fighting games, which they're no longer a studio, right? That's
a good question. They made a lot of games back in the day, though. Let's do a quick old Wikipedia here.
Yeah, they made a lot of games back in the day, but there was one new contribution with Street Smart, and this game added to the genre was the ability to add normal moves to fighting combos. So instead of like only special combos, you could add normal fighting moves to combos as well. So that's how you get like the long string of combos in modern fighting games is that. And that's
Gotcha.
where Street Smart kind of introduced, which I
Okay.
think is cool.
Apparently, SNK just makes mobile games now. That's
Hey, you know,
they still exist, but they make mobile games.
it's a business, I guess.
Mobile
so there
games
you go.
and pachinko machines. Man, pachinko machines, that's big business in Japan.
People love pachinko. I don't even know what pachinko is. Do you know what it is?
You know, I feel like I should, and now that you asked me, I don't think I can answer that question. I think it's like Peggle.
All right.
Now I'm Googling a pachinko machine. Hold on.
Now we also got to talk to Matt about it. Matt'll know. You know, he's our go-to correspondent in Japan.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He definitely knows what a pachinko machine is.
All right. Well, while you look that up,
It is. It's like Peggle.
Oh, it's like Peggle. Okay. I love Peggle. So maybe I should move to Japan because I might love pachinko. Right?
Yeah, they fall vertically through an array of pins, levers, cups, traps, and various obstacles till they reach the bottom of the machine. Yeah. So it's like you launch the ball like in a pinball machine where you pull a thing back and launch it, and then it peggles its way back down.
Okay. I could see myself playing that for way too long.
Yeah, me too. It sounds like a lot of fun.
It's like at Dave & Buster's where they have those coin pushy machines.
Yeah.
Oh, I fall into those. I get it.
Sounds like
what
a lot
I'm
of
trying
fun.
to say is I'm going to be like a 70-year-old man on a cruise ship playing that. You know, that's going to be
Playing
me.
pachinko.
Yeah, playing pachinko. All right. Next game is called Fist of the North Star, 10 Big Brawls for the King of the Universe, which is a really cool title. Yeah, that's a really cool title, I think. It's weird because titles can be too long or too short, but when they're too long, they somehow pull it off. Like this is too long, this title. But Fist of the North Star is
That's
great
an anime,
name.
isn't it? Or a manga, I think.
I think
I think it's like an existing franchise already.
I think you're right. I think this is licensed 100%.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
more you say it, the more I feel like I'm wrong. But still, very cool. 10 Big Brawls for the King of the Universe. The reason it's good, both of those like the title and the subtitle, could be titles on their own. So you put them
Yeah,
together.
10 Big Brawls for the King of the Universe. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's
I
a
would play
banger.
that game.
Total banger. Okay, this was by Toei Animation in 1989. It came out on Game Boy only, which is why it's on the list, because this is the first fighting game to originate on a portable console.
Whoa.
This game was made for Game Boy and Game Boy only. Spoilers, it is not very good. The aerial combos feel good because you can just continuously fight in midair, but the rest of it just doesn't translate well to the Game Boy. This goes a lot back to us talking about other portable games and how they didn't really work well going from a home system to a portable system. Castlevania comes to mind with this, where some of their Game Boy versions of Castlevania games lacked a lot and they didn't do as well and they didn't play as well. So we've talked about this before, but that's what Fist of the North Star, 10 Big Brawls for the King of the Universe suffers
I
from.
love that.
Me too. I love it so much. All right, 2 more games left.
Okay.
This one is called Chambers of Shaolin. It is developed by Thalion in 1989 for the Amiga, Atari ST, Commodore 64, and the Amiga CD32. The game is based on the movie The 36th Chamber of Shaolin, which is funny because there's nowhere near 32 chambers in this game. The reason I'm including it is because this game is interesting because in this movie, you watch them train to be like Shaolin monk martial artist, and the game is entirely training based. So each
Whoa.
level is like you're dodging projectiles for one level, you're balancing for one level and other challenges, but you're not actually fighting anyone, even though it is a fighting game. And I thought this was a very interesting idea, and it reminded me of that arcade game when Area 51 was popular in Time Crisis, the police training simulator.
Oh, yeah. I know which one you're talking about. I can't remember what it was called, though.
And you would never fight bad guys, but you were like trained to be a police officer on like a shooting range, and they would like pop up, or they had like robots from like Star Wars, the lightsaber robots. You'd have to shoot those in the air and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, it was like a training level from Call of Duty where they make you go through the house, and shoot the wood targets.
Training the game, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I just thought that was a really cool idea, and I think it's a really cool idea for a game. So, and apparently I want to watch this movie, The 36th Chamber of Shaolin. Because,
All right.
I want to know about these chambers and why there are 32 or 36
So many of them.
Yeah. I just realized I said there's nowhere near 32 chambers in the game, but I wrote 36 chamber. So, I don't know. Yeah. Okay, the last game today we're going to talk about is important because it's bad. Real bad. So, it's called Pit Fighter. It was developed by Atari in 1990. It came out on a lot of systems. The arcade, Super Nintendo, Genesis, Game Boy, Master System, Commodore 64, IBM PC, Lynx, Amiga, the Amstrad CPC, ZX Spectrum, Atari ST, GameCube, PlayStation 2, Xbox, Windows. Well, the reason we're including this game is because this might be known as one of the worst fighting games of all time. Here's the quote from Hardcore Gaming 101. And this is just part of the quote of the gripes of this game. So here we go. Quote, Pit Fighter is probably the most well-known fighting game in America to have been released prior to Street Fighter II. The game is remembered not for its quality, though, but for it being mind-bogglingly horrible. Pit Fighter might lack certain gameplay elements most other games have, but that isn't enough to explain why this game is so bad. As opposed to other better executed games, in Pit Fighter, every individual element is horribly executed. The hit detection is terrible. The control response is horrible. And the way the game simply feels is horrible. There are plenty of games that fail on every level and are really nothing more than boring. Pit Fighter is another beast entirely, though. Pit Fighter exceeds boring or bad and reaches that level where a game, despite giving people something to do, is infinitely worse than doing nothing at all.
Dang, that's pretty mean.
Yeah, I was like, wow, Hardcore Gaming 101. Like, what did Pit Fighter do to you? You know? So, also, I should mention that what's funny is I didn't understand this. As I was reading through the earlier games, they would use the term Pit Fighter-esque every once in a while. And I thought they were referring to a genre. I didn't understand when they were using the term Pit Fighter-esque, it means the game is bad. So the only thing this game brought to the table, which is weird because you look at screenshots of this game and it just looks like an older beat 'em up game kind of thing. And you're like, oh, it can't be that bad. But what this did bring that's unique is 3-player co-op. So that's it. GG Pit Fighter. Thank you for giving us 3-player co-op. But that's about it.
All right. Well,
so that kind of brings us up to Street Fighter 2, which is the big one. And this is when the era completely changes to the style we know and love today, and where the fighting game genre ends its identity crisis. We finally know what it is, you know? And I left out a lot of games from the list because truthfully, there are so many. Not only were there some games I skipped that were in the article, but there is also a whole section called Rejects, which interestingly enough contains a couple of fighting games that I covered in the first episode, which I don't know why they considered them rejects. So I guess what I'm saying is Hardcore Gamer 101 and I have some Hardcore Gaming 101 and I have some difference in opinion about what should be covered and what shouldn't be covered. But because there were some games they covered on the list that were like very much like you punch a guy once and it's considered a fighting game. And I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, but I highly recommend you look at their article because props to Hardcore Gaming 101. That is the most detailed collection of games I've ever had for doing research. And it helped me so much because I was so clueless about this genre. And they really did a good job at putting it all together. So shout out to Hardcore Gaming 101. I'm sorry we disagreed on what's a reject or not, but a very good article and very informative. And if you are interested in this topic, I highly recommend you look into it. I plan to give Street Fighter 1 and 2 their own episodes since they are pretty much crucial to understanding how the fighting game genre is today. Like, that's what it became. But until then, Tyler, what you been playing?
I've been playing Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I just started it yesterday and played a little bit more today, so I'm probably about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes into it. And if you like Ratchet and Clank, boy, this is more of that. You're just going to love it. Like, it's one of those games that knows what it is, and it just continues to be great at what it does. And so far, I haven't seen anything too revolutionary. There's like kind of a cool dodge mechanic they added. The rifting stuff, and I haven't seen in some of the I know later on in the game, I think the rift mechanic gets a lot cooler, where you like are jumping between worlds like so fast. But the one what I've seen so far, the thing they keep showing is the like you just sort of zip to a new location, and it does a really cool visual effect when it does it. But it's really just a grappling hook that pulls you to where the grappling hook is going to pull you to. But there's a neat visual effect that goes with it. But man, I don't know if you are a Ratchet and Clank fan, but I love those games, and I love this game so much so far of what I've played. And there's a new playable character, Rivet, who is like there's a lot of alternate dimension, alternate reality shenanigans going on in this game. And so Rivet is like a alternate dimension Ratchet that's female and is a hero of her own in her own dimension, which is very cool. And she plays just like Ratchet. It's very fun.
That sounds really... I've never played a Ratchet and Clank game because I haven't been a PlayStation guy, you know?
Oh, boy.
It's another reason I goofed. I goofed.
I think they emulate pretty well on the PS2 and the PS3 emulators. I think you can do okay with them.
Okay, I'll go buy a legal copy of the game. Completely legal.
Of course.
And I will play it, obviously, naturally.
Yeah.
Well, this week my plan was to really power through Mass Effect Andromeda. That did not happen because I had a bunch of stuff going on in my life. But what I did do, and I was able to do, is so I had my dad to visit over at my house, and I had to be super quiet at night because, you know, parents, they go to bed at like 9, you know?
And normal person time, yeah.
Yeah, like normally. So I beat on a whim one night. I just finally beat Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon, or Ultra Moon. Sorry, not both of them, just Ultra Moon. And I beat the Elite Four. I thought it would be challenging. Turns out I just went in with the party I had and just wrecked house, and I had it fine. I just followed guides about like type and stuff because it's changed a lot since the 151 that I know and love, you know? So it's it was hard to keep up, but I'm really happy I beat it because that's still like the one that got away from me was Pokemon Pearl because I kind of gave up on it and I never beat it. And so I'm really glad I beat Ultra Moon, and I'm really happy with it. So I beat the Elite Four, and then I checked out some of the end game stuff, but it wasn't really for me. And I'm like, oh, I just beat the Elite Four. I feel good about my purchase, and I had fun, and it was really good. And that got me playing Pokemon Go again, of all things. So I've been like doing that in my downtime, like in between just walking around. Because I've also been trying to personally like walk more, you know, as a human being. So it's been helping me with that when I go on my walks and stuff as a person does. But I did play a little bit of Mass Effect today. I am still liking the game. It's just, I feel like that's a game that you really got to sit down and be like, I have 3 hours to do this, you know, versus my whole week, which has been, I have 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge, but I played that. I'm going to try to play some more Smash to unlock some more characters because I was really having fun with the Discord folks playing Smash with them, but I would like to have more variation in my random assortment of characters I use. So yeah, there's that, but I'm trying to really go through the backlog now because after seeing this whole E3 Xbox presentation, I am fully on the hype machine, you know, of all these games on Game Pass coming out.
I'm so
fall.
excited. Yakuza Like a Dragon is hitting Game Pass. I want to pick that one up. I still need to play Persona, but I think I'm starting to come to grips with I'm about to put Persona down for a little while. Now I'm not giving up on it. I will come back to it for sure. But there's so many other games that are like demanding my attention, and I'm like halfway through that. And so I really gotta be okay with just putting it down for a little while, you know?
Yeah, it's weird for me. For like Mass Effect, we bought that. We both bought it at the same time when it went on sale for like $12. I think you and I did.
Yeah, Andromeda.
Yeah, and I never played it, and I'm picking it up, and I'm like, I'm having so much fun. And I'm like, I'm glad I put it down for when I did, but I'm like, this is a good time. I'm what I'm feeling right now. So I'm going to beat that. And then I might try to beat some other games on my backlog, like Dark Souls or Borderlands 3. You know, essentially, I'm trying to beat the games I purchased and never finished to get my money's worth out of them. And I didn't stop playing them because I hated them. I just stopped playing them because other games came out.
It happens, you know, especially in this world where so many games and
so many games.
And there's so many options and ways to play so many games. Like when they're all coming out on Game Pass on the day of, like, boy, it's hard to.
Yeah, I actually want to talk to our listeners about this. Like, I want to know their opinion. If they could send us an email, codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. Are you interested or at all excited about cloud gaming? Whether that's xCloud or, well, I guess, is Stadia dead?
No, it's not dead, but I mean, it
Might as well be. Yeah. But
Yeah.
like, I wonder if this is going to be something that is the future. Like, we're seeing a time now where games are essentially becoming a la Netflix monthly subscription. Do you think the xCloud thing will ever take off? I guess I want to hear your opinion on it too, Tyler.
Well, my opinion is I think for the way the games are nowadays, I think subscriptions like Game Pass are going to be great. I don't think xCloud and Stadia are great ways to play games right now. However, I do think that somebody is going to invent a game that can only be done through that, like having that access to like those gigantic servers to do the processing. Like they'll just have like 10,000 people in the same game, and it will make sense that way. Somebody will do it, and it will be done in a way that you just couldn't do it on like a desktop PC or a console. That's when cloud gaming will start to take off if those games start to be really, really good. But right now we're just seeing games that could be played on a console. They're just like, well, we're just going to put it in the cloud and stream it to your screen. And that has its limitations. And I don't think that's ever going to really take off. But I do think that there is something that will do it at some point. And you'll go, wow, and there's no way I could do this on a console or a PC.
And that game is called Jaybird 10,000.
Jaybird 10,000.
Versus 10,000
I'm working on it.
other people. Tyler's designing it. You know what game I like? I'm gonna call it YouTube got into, because I get into games and I sometimes just look up on YouTube because I'm like, I know it's a thing that I'm never gonna play really, or at least not pay for now, but I'm excited about it. I love the idea of Star Citizen. Like, I love it as a persistent universe world. Yeah. And I think the next time they do a free fly weekend, I'm gonna do it. Like,
all right.
For free. Like, I think I'm going to do it for free because I think my computer can run it. Because I thought it was like next gen hardware. It was next gen hardware 7 years ago. So, like, I could play it easily now. But I was looking at that, and the idea is really cool to me. But what's interesting about it, and I think I struggle with this now, is it's a game that you have to make your own fun.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to? Are you going to mine? Are you going to steal from other players? Are you going to go dogfight random CPU people in spaceships? And I think I struggle with that in like now. I just because I want the game to just point me in a direction and go, if that makes sense. And I'm struggling with that with Destiny right now too. I wanted to on Friday night go LFG a raid, and I turned my computer on, and I was like, I don't want to play with random people. And then I turned my computer off, and I just didn't play because I'm getting to that point where I just don't need I don't want that, I'd much rather do that with you or the Codex crew. Can we call them that? Is that a good name?
Codex crew? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to have no direction and try to motivate yourself, which is weird because it's a video game and it's supposed to be fun, and I have to struggle to motivate myself.
Sometimes it's okay to just say, you know what, this isn't for me right now. That's sort of what I've done with Destiny. I bought the expansion and I played for a couple hours, and I'm just like still kind of, I don't know.
I don't regret it because I do play the hour of story content every week for fun because I like that. And it's like a cool way for me to like keep up with this world that I care about. But in the end, this is a game that needs to be played with other people. And if you don't have other people, it's hard. Yep. Not that I blame the other people for leaving, because I totally get it. There's so much more to do in video games now. There's too many games to play,
I want to come back someday. I'm not never say never. I'm not saying I'd give it up forever, but I just can't find. There's just too many games to play, and I can't find the motivation to get myself back into it. So,
someone on the Discord, I think it might have been Will, put a picture of Destiny's bad. And but I still play it, and I'm like, this is Mike, and I'm like, yep, you're right, this is me, 100%, because I am. It's because I want it. You ever want something to be like when that game came out, I thought I was gonna fly my spaceship, from world to world, and it turns out the ships are just entirely cosmetic. They serve no purpose.
They're just you look at them on a loading screen.
Yeah, which I think is why I'm so amped for Starfield, because that trailer got me so hyped, because it looks like it's like space exploration, but not so future that it's unrecognizable, which I think is really cool. And I'm just nerding out about it. But we have.
Did you play No Man's Sky? I need to play No Man's Sky.
I never did. It's on my Xbox.
It keeps getting big, huge updates, and I still have not played it.
Yeah, I've heard it's really good now. We have friends that play it too. We can talk about them after this episode's over, because we don't want to put them on blast. Okay. But all right, so let's do our emails next, because I just gushed over space games for the last 7 minutes. So how do we even have listeners? Okay, here we go. This next one, I love these from Mo. I love these so much.
Oh, we got another quiz from Mo.
Yeah, so this is called Real or Fake Round 2 Mega Man Bosses, and Tyler's going to read the email and quiz me, and I'm excited.
Okay, so I'll read this setup here. Hey dudes, it's Mo. Whenever you have time, here's another round of Real or Fake Mega Man Edition. Listeners can play along too. I'll name and describe one of the Mega Man bosses, aka the Robot Masters, and you have to decide if it's a real boss from any of the Mega Man games or a fake boss that I made up. After you've made your guess, I'll highlight the way. Okay. 10 spider butts are awarded for each correct answer. Are you ready, Mike, for number 1?
I'm ready. I'm not cheating. I'm playing this legit. Here we go.
Okay. Number 1, Top Man. He has a huge spinning top for a head, and he has wheelie shoes. He'll spin you right round, baby, right round.
This is one of the only ones I think I recognize, and I think it is a real Mega Man boss.
Okay.
I have not played Mega Man that much.
He is real. He first appears in Mega Man 3.
Okay, good. So I have 10 spider butts on the board. Here we go.
Yep, 10 spider butts. I'm keeping a tally here. Okay. Number 2, Poop Man. Looks like a robotic poop emoji. He flings poop at you with his shovel arms.
That can't be real. That's no way. I mean, I'm gonna say fake.
It is fake. Maybe
okay,
he says
good.
maybe in the new Mega Man 12 coming out.
Possible. Poop Man. All right, so I'm 2 for 2 so far.
Yep. I'm keeping track. Okay. Number 3, Blood Man. Looks a bit like Proto Man, but with a syringe arm that shoots blood drops at you.
I feel like that could work. I think that could work. I'm gonna say real.
You say real, even though these games are all rated E for everyone. This one is fake.
Oh, really? These are all E for everyone games?
I think so.
Where's my gritty, mature Mega Man reboot?
I don't know. The flavor text on this also is, let's all give blood and save lives, though.
Oh, that's nice. Thanks, Mo.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm a 2 for 3. I really thought Blood Man could be a thing.
Okay. Number 4, Sheep Man. Looks like a giant fluffy sheep with 2 electric rods on his back. He can turn into flying puffs of wool.
Real. Calling it. Sheep. If it's an E for everyone game, everyone loves sheep.
Yep. Real. He first appears in Mega Man 10.
Yes, that's 30 spider butts for old Mike. How are you doing at home, folks? Tell us. Email us. Let us know how you did. Okay.
Okay. Number 5, Buttman. Looks like a robotic rear end. He jumps really high in the air and tries to slam you with an epic ground pound.
Is butts E everyone? Are
I think so.
butts rated E for everyone? That's the real question.
So.
I mean, a butt slam attack sounds very real. I'm going to say real. I've just said real the last 3, but
it's not real.
Oh.
It says fake. I really hope you get this one right.
I was thinking because of the ground, like saying the epic ground pound is totally a bad guy move.
Yeah.
So I think he did a good job at getting me.
Yeah, these are good. Okay, number 6, Plug Man. He has an electric plug on his head and another on his arm. Maybe he will charge your phone for you.
Okay, so Top Man was just a top. Sheep Man is sheep. Plug Man with the theme, I think that's real. I think that's a real thing.
He is real. He appears in Mega Man 9.
Gosh, I got so hosed by the poop and butt man. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, number 7, Magic Man. This guy looks like a suit-wearing Vegas-performing magician. He has 2 giant decks of cards as pauldrons.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say nay. It's fake.
It is real. He appears in Mega Man and Bass. It should be bass, right? Because they're all like musical terms. How many is that for you? 4? Is that 4?
Yeah, I have 4 right, but I've missed 3.
Okay.
Magic Man just didn't sound to fit with like the simple like you know, Plug Man, Top Man. That seems pretty simple. Okay.
Yeah. All right, number 8. Woodman. He looks like a chubby dwarf with a tree stump for a head, and he launches leaves at you.
I'm going to say real.
Yes, he is real. He first appears in Mega Man 2. That's 5.
Right, I'm going to say real. I got 5. I've got 50 spider butts. Nowhere near perfect, but here we go. Trying to come back in the end here.
All right, number 9. Lint Man. He looks like a giant fuzzy ball of lint with a blaster arm, and if you get too close, he attacks you with static electricity.
See, I think Sheep Man has the wool lint covered. So I'm going to say no to Lint Man.
You are correct. Lint Man is fake.
You can't trick me, Mo, unless it's talking about butts. All right.
Don't forget to check your dryer's lint trap, though.
That is true. It's a fire
That's
hazard.
how fires start. Yep.
I have such
Okay.
old washer and dryers. It is kind of nerve-wracking where I live. All right.
Number 10, Strike Man. He looks like a giant baseball with a baseball glove for a hand. He throws baseballs at you. And then I'm assuming this is sung, so I'm going to sing it now. Take me out to the ball game.
Well, that's good. That's very good, Tyler.
Thanks.
Strike Man. Okay, this is like a cultural thing. I know baseball is both big in Japan and America. So I'm going to say this is plausible. So I'm going to say it's real.
It is real. He first appears in Mega Man 10.
Nice. Okay, good. I got 70 spider butts.
All
I
right.
I could buy a new next gen video game for my 70 spider. If it's the spider butt to dollar ratio is 1-to-1.
Yeah, you could indeed. We have two more. The first one is Pump Man. He legit looks like one of those water pumps used to pump a well. Before becoming an evil robot, he worked at a wastewater treatment plant.
I mean, this is kind of simple like Plug Man, so I'm going to say real.
Yeah, he first appears in Mega Man 10.
Nice. I think I'm getting the theme more. I think I'm understanding the theme.
Okay. Last
Okay.
one. Denim Man. A pudgy-looking robot covered entirely in dark blue denim. He attacks you by whipping his overall straps at you. Watch out for the brass button launcher.
I'm going to say fake because denim seems too specific.
Yeah. Mo says fake, but I've always been a fan of double denim.
Denim on denim, you know? The
Denim on
Canadian
denim.
tuxedo. Who
So that's
doesn't
9
love
out
it?
of 12. That's pretty
It's
good.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, I feel like I got kind of bamboozled by Buttman because
You did. You really did.
because you're going to put Poop Man on the list, and that's fake, and you're going to put Buttman. And my thought was it's going to be real because he's trying to fake me out because
Yep.
Poop Man was fake. But what
Mo's
ended up
one
happening,
step ahead of you, man.
I bamboozled. Mo's playing 3D chess right now, and I am
Yeah.
just completely. Is it 4D chess that you say? It's 4D.
5D checkers.
How many dimensions in this chess game? But Mo's got all the dimensions. Is what I'm trying to say.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah, right. So, okay, how did we want to know how you did, listeners? You can tell us on Discord or something. I'm curious.
Do
Please
you
say,
have a favorite Mega Man boss?
Did you get bamboozled by the button Poop Man? That's still clean. I think we're still fine on
Yeah,
the podcast.
I think that's fine.
According to the
Thanks,
laws
Mo.
of stand-up comedy. Thank you, Mo.
That was fun.
Do you have a favorite Mega Man boss? Is the question he asked us.
Oh, I haven't played any Mega Man games except for one that was on my TI-83 calculator, and I don't remember any of the
I
bosses
actually
from it.
picked up the Mega Man collection when it was free on Game Pass, and it was so hard that I stopped playing after like 20 minutes.
They have good music, though.
They have a great music. Just the game is so hard, and I love it, but I just can't play that. You know, I can't do it that way anymore.
Yeah.
All right. This next email is from Matt in Japan. It's called Apples, the fruit, not the computer, is the subject line. Hey, Mike and Tyler, imagine you come home one day and you see a bowl of apples. No matter how many you eat, the bowl will always be full of apples. How many apples do you think you could eat in one sitting? A couple clarifications. The apples are a mix of whatever kinds you like, and you can eat the apples any way you like, excluding pies, applesauce, cobbler, etc. Cutting a whole apple into slices and eating all of them counts as one apple. Simply biting into and eating the entire apple down to its core counts as one apple. You don't have to eat the core, just get close enough. Think wing eating contest rules.
Okay.
Personally, I think I could do 5 apples. From Matt in Japan. This
Okay.
is a challenging question because an apple is one of those foods that can really sneak up on you, I
Yeah.
think. You know? You think you can
Yeah.
get like 4 or 5 apples, and then you're like, I don't know. I'm going to say, because I love apple slices, like cutting them with those little slicer machines, if it's just a metal blade thing. I think I could do 5 apples. I think I'm right there with Matt. I think 5 is a good amount.
Okay.
I'm not to just tie Matt, but I think that's a good amount, and I think I can do that because I've definitely eaten like 2 apples in a sitting and felt fine. So,
Yeah. So
What about you?
Mine depends on. I have one clarifying question. It's: am I motivated to eat many apples, or am I just? Is this just like how many do you think you would eat if there was a bowl of apples in front of you? I think I would eat 2 if I was given unlimited apples and they were just put in front of me and they're just like, here you go, here's some apples. I think I'd eat 2 of them. If it's a challenge of like, how many can you eat? Do your best. I think I could do 5.
yeah, see, I mean, the thing is, apples are light, but
Yeah.
they can really catch up on you. I also love that he said excluding pies or cobbler, because he knows I would have been all about that cobbler and pies. Also, when you make it in a pie or a cobbler, those apples kind of shrink down, make them easier to eat,
Yeah.
So, but that's a very good question, Matt. And I'm going to say 5 apples with you.
Yeah, me
because
too.
I really think 6 is too much. And I think 4 it's just, I think I could do more than 4. I really do. I really do. Listeners, how many apples do you think you can eat in this situation? Also, if you have any clarifying questions, we can make this a real discussion. So I like this question a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
The last email today is pertaining to our last episode on cheating devices.
Okay. This is from Brian. Brian asks, "Hey guys, great episodes this week. I was wondering, you guys have either used or know of apps like WeMod or Cheat Happens. These are PC apps that will search your game library and show you what trainers or cheats are available for your games. Most are activated with an assignable key to activate on your keyboard. 99% of them are free as well. Thanks for always making Monday great. Well, for about an hour at least. Thanks, Brian." I have not used either of those applications. I have used trainers before. Like way back in the day, you used to just Google and find a trainer app. They're kind of sketchy, at least back in the day, to download. They would have like theme songs. They had real like hacking, cracking scene vibes to them. I never really got into them. I did use them a little bit more on my modded Xbox because there was a trainer thing built into the Xbox dashboard I used to use. That was pretty cool. You could just find cheats for whatever games you were playing. And you weren't playing them online anyway if you were playing them off of the hard drive. So I used to do that a little bit, but otherwise, no, I haven't really done any of that. How about you, Mike?
I've never used them. I'm a little confused. Does this mean like you use WeMod or Cheat Happens and it just pulls up like the cheats you can enter in the game, or is it actually messing with your game file?
And if it's a trainer, then it's actually messing with the game's memory itself.
Yeah, I think because the first option is kind of obsolete because the internet, you can just look up all the cheats. But I was always sketched out. I never did this for computer, but I did at a very dark time. I got a cracked version of Pokemon Go, and I was spoofing a lot from my office and my job.
You dirty cheater.
Yeah, in my job I had it in LA. I just didn't like my job, but I was just bored, and I spoofed Pokemon Go, and I played Pokemon Go so much on this spoof thing. And that I think would kind of more qualify as like a trainer kind of deal from what they're doing, because they're like cracking the app so you could be wherever. And I actually had someone try to hack my iPhone, and 2-factor authentication saved me. And that's the only experience I ever have had with like a cheating thing for a modern game. And it has scared me so much that I will never use one again, because it was like really like someone's trying to like access your account from somewhere. I think it was like it was in China somewhere, and I was just like, oh, this is definitely like why I should not be using these apps anymore. Like they tried to log into my Apple account. So yeah. So I mean, I am such a goody two shoes now after that little venture. But I did have a lot of fun raiding in Santa Monica when I was in Burbank. That was fun for Pokemon. So,
without actually going to Santa Monica.
Yeah.
It's too bad. Santa Monica's nice.
Yeah, I know it is. It's very nice. And what's funny is I did that, and then I watched this video where someone's like, why don't you just play a Pokemon game? And I'm like, well, because I can play on my phone at work, but you can't exactly bring a DS to work.
Yeah, it's a little bit depending on what the norms are in the place that you're at.
Yeah, if it looks like I'm just checking my text on my phone when really I'm just catching a Bulbasaur from...
Yeah.
That was actually kind of fun, because you could go like... you could just enter a GPS coordinate and go to another city, which is kind of neat to see what the city... Like, oh, I'm touring the city, but from my desk. It was kind of really weird in a dirty way. But that's my only experience with a cheating thing on modern... I guess you could say console, even though it's a phone. And I am very afraid. Same thing, kind of sketched out by it now. I don't know if I'd use one. But if WeMod and Cheat Happens is popular and it's not sketchy, then I would probably be more open to it, I think.
Yeah, for single player games, of course, never advocate playing online and ruining other people's experiences.
Unless you're me and you play Pokemon Go. Although I think
Yeah.
I never...
Well, I mean, Pokemon Go is like sort of a single... Like, you're still really only cheating yourself, you know?
Yeah, if anything, I was helping people in raids by not being there in person. So, yeah, watch out. Cheating trainer. Am I the Robin Hood of Pokemon Go? Some say that,
Some say. Many people are saying Mike Coletta is the Robin Hood of Pokemon Go.
Yes, that's right. But that's a great question, though, Brian. And if anyone else here has used WeMod or Cheat Happens or has an experience with trainers or cheating apps that are not like Game Genie or things we discuss, or even those two. Like, I'd love to hear that because I find this whole thing very interesting, and I also find it that we need to do an episode on modding and like console modding.
Yeah,
because it's going to be hard to find the history of from the beginning to end, but we can certainly look console by console at modding.
Oh, looking at the mod scenes for different consoles, especially when you get to like the original Xbox era. Oh man, that is like the golden era of console modding, if you ask me.
Yeah, people have done some really cool stuff with original Xbox modding.
Yeah.
So I think it would be neat to look into that. But thank you, Brian. That's a great email. Great question. So with that, I don't know what episode what are we doing next week, Tyler? Do you know what we're talking about
I
next
don't know
week
yet. We'll find out.
Ooh, this is a surprise cliffhanger. Well, if you want to send us an email, you can do that at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. If you want to give us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, that we'd appreciate that as well. You can also just tell your friends about us. That's probably the best thing you could do because we don't really advertise this podcast. It's a labor of love. So it'd be nice if you told people about us. And we have a Discord. You can get an invite to it by emailing us, or you can go to my Twitter at mecoletta, MECOLETTA, and click on the link pinned to the top of my profile, and that is a universal invite that will never expire. Tyler's also on Twitter at SneakerElf, if you want to talk to him about my poor opinions on cheating in Pokemon Go. So with that, I think that's the episode, and we'll see you all next week. You want to say bye to everybody, Tyler?
Goodbye, everybody.